Evening all.
How's everybody doing?
Yeah,
Fine, thanks, Lloyd.
Good.
All happy.
You're happy?
What's going on in your background there, Ben?
Well, we're not having any of that. We're not having happiness anymore. Archery's meant to be serious. It's not a happy sport. Come on.
You guys see my screen on your screen or just
Yeah, I've got your screen, Lloyd.
what?
I've got your screen with the
What do you
recording
see?
started and all the
What?
meeting chat.
I can only see your LB.
You don't see my pretty face?
No, I don't see a pretty face, Lloyd.
Should be. I
Yeah, I
definitely
can see your pretty face.
God,
Lloyd, yeah.
can't figure out.
If you go to actions, if you get the three dots, there's a together mode. If you click the together mode, everybody should come on who's got their camera on.
All five of you.
All five of us.
And you're all sitting in chairs there.
Yeah.
That Danny in the back.
Yeah.
There you go. I can pick Lloyd's nose.
You see the same thing I see? Lucky.
Ruin it.
I think there's a lot more people on here though.
Oh, I could change to Michael Pride. Look at that. Look, I'm Robin Hood.
Weird
Good for you, Ben.
There you go.
I'm not that gifted.
Okay, well, I guess we'll go ahead and get started. It looks like there's quite a few people on here. Not sure how many. Is there somewhere it'll tell me how many?
Yeah, if you go to the participants thing, it'll say in this meeting 20.
21.
Oh, 21 girl. Yeah.
Is there? Oh, 21. Oh, yeah, 43 sign up.
Oh, that's me. I'm here too.
Oh.
Yeah, sorry about that. It comes as a double act.
Yeah.
Just control them.
I
Just
wonder
ain't
if
gonna work.
there'll be more. Okay, I am recording this meeting. Is that okay with everybody?
Yes.
Yeah, as long as you get my
I'd
good
rather
side.
not record, but Helen comes after me if I don't.
Who's the sheriff of Nottingham tonight then? Ben.
That'll be Jade when she doesn't bring me dinner up to me in a minute.
Okay, I had some things I was going to talk about. I came prepared to actually talk a little bit about some things that I think are important in coaching. It's something that came up at our senior coach meeting that I thought I would address, and I think it's important for all coaches. But first, I was just going to talk a little bit about my background, because I don't think a lot of people know where I come from, and mainly that's just to kind of show you that I have actually quite a diverse background in archery, and I've done quite a lot. I've just been really lucky just how I fell into different things within the sport, which I'll kind of go over. It's just a brief overview. I put together a little bit of a presentation.
Oops.
Okay, do you see that?
Yes.
Yeah, got that.
Yep.
Yep.
I'll make sure I get this thing back up. Okay, so on my personal journey, I was just going to tell you first how I first got interested in archery was when I was, I'm not sure, 8 years old. It might have been somewhere between 5 and 8. But my dad got me a bow and some arrows that I think he picked up at a garage sale somewhere or something. A used set of archery equipment, just a stick fiberglass bow. And the next day, I was quite excited about the bow and the arrows, so I went out to shoot and didn't really have any place to shoot or anything to shoot at, so I shot at the garage door. So when my dad got home that night and saw all the holes in the garage door, he took my bow and arrow away from me, and I didn't get to do archery again for a while until I went to Boy Scout summer camp when I was 11 years old. And at summer camp, they had the archery merit badge, and so I signed up for that because somehow I just loved archery. I didn't know why, but I didn't really get to do it. Didn't really know I didn't know there was archery, like organized archery or clubs or any place you could go to really learn archery. But at camp, I decided to do the archery merit badge, which I did. And I got my archery merit badge as a Boy Scout. Then when I went to university, I went to San Diego State University. They had an archery class there, beginning archery class. So again, I loved archery. I wanted to do archery. I saw it in the catalog, so I signed up to take a beginning archery class. And by then I was 17 years old. And then the next semester I took a intermediate archery class. So that was kind of my introduction to learning more. Well, that summer I decided, it was a combination of I was working at McDonald's and I just broke up with my girlfriend, and I thought, what am I going to do this summer? And I thought that I wanted to go back to that Boy Scout camp where I learned archery and actually teach archery and become an archery instructor. And I got really lucky that because the camps by then had already pretty well filled all of their staff positions. But I called them up and they said, no, they didn't have an archery instructor. I told them who I was, what I was doing. And so they signed me up to be the archery instructor. So my beginning as an archery coach was as a Boy Scout summer camp archery instructor. That's how I started. Now, I kind of became known within the camp circles in Southern California and San Diego as the guy who knows archery, because one of the things I had to do in order to be a Boy Scout looks like I got cut out there for a minute. Am I back?
Yeah, you're back now.
Okay. Anyway, during this course, which I was required to take, it was called the Shooting Sports Director. We basically did a National Rifle Association course in rifle, pistol, and shotgun, and a little bit about fishing. And then when they got to the archery part, the guy who was teaching said, well, I don't really know anything about archery. And he asked me to teach the part about archery. So here I was signed up to be an archery instructor. And all of a sudden I'm supposed to be teaching people how to be archery instructors. So that was my very, very first early on experience with that. So that was when I first, I guess, my early days of being a coach developer was teaching Boy Scout camp counselors how to teach archery. And that was something that actually grew over the years. I started doing that more and more with all the summer camps in Southern California for what they called through the American Camping Association, and teaching all the archery instructors in the area, really not knowing very much about what I was doing at all, just from what I knew, taking my beginner and intermediate archery classes at university. Now my slide isn't going here. So yeah, that was my Boy Scout camp days. It looked a bit like this. I love this picture. I found it on Google, showing good, safe archery range practice. But I tell this story because I made so many mistakes, and I think you learn from your mistakes. And one of my mistakes, I turned my back on the kids that were shooting for a little bit to go take care of some equipment or get equipment ready for another kid. And when I came back, there was a kid sitting next to a target while another kid was shooting at that target, and he was telling him where his arrows were going. And I think that was when I first learned that you don't take your eyes off the kids when you're an archery instructor, because it could have been a bigger problem. Anyway, so I started teaching the camp archery instructors, and later on, right before I graduated from university, I was hired at Easton to work at Easton Sports Development Foundation, which that was kind of lucky. It was right after the 1984 Olympics were in Los Angeles, and part of Easton's sponsorship agreement of the Olympics were that they would start these youth archery programs in Southern California, so mostly in the Los Angeles area, and like El Dorado Park where the Olympics were held, and a few other locations in Los Angeles. So I started doing that, which also involved running tournaments on the weekends and some other stuff. And because I was starting to work for Easton, I needed to get a coaching certification, so I took the USA Archery Level 4 National Coach course, which is it was really just a 1 week long course at the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs. But I did learn a lot there, not really from the people that were presenting the course, but more from some of the participants that were in the course. And so there were some big names. I don't know if you guys know them here, but Tim Strickland and Dave Kagi Sr., who wrote Power Archery, which is an old book. But I learned a lot about execution stuff from them. So anyway, then later I did a lot of other stuff, but I started coaching at some of the junior Olympic camps, which were just any kid could sign up to get into a junior Olympic camp. And I was doing those for 3 or 4 weeks every summer at the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs. And then I also started coaching some individuals locally. And it really started because Justin Hewish, who won the 96 Olympics, his mom took one of my level 1 instructor courses and asked if I would come up to her. They just bought an archery shop and asked if I'd come up and coach the kids at their archery shop once a week. So I was doing that after work on Thursdays. And a lot of the kids I was coaching were getting pretty good, and they were making national teams and stuff. So I was kind of starting to be recognized as some kind of a coach of quality. So then I started working with the junior elite. These are the junior U.S. archery team camps. So that's our top kids in the country at their training camps. And then eventually I was asked to start working with the U.S. national team camps, the adult camps. And then later I became the resident athlete coach with the new Olympic Training Center in San Diego. And that was more because I was available, because I already lived in Southern California and I was in San Diego. And because I worked for Easton, I was still working for Easton at the time. So Easton was actually donating my time to be the resident athlete coach. And I was really only doing that part-time. So during that time, I also wrote for USA Archery. I wrote our basic level 1 and level 2, which is really just an instructor, level 1 basic instructor and level 2 instructor. It's not really coaching yet at that level. Only level 3 becomes the title of coach. And it's still that way today. But I wrote their training manuals, and by then we were working up. When I first started getting into the program, there were less than 100 instructors trained a year. By the time we'd built it up, we were training over 5,000 a year in the United States. And it's also adopted by the National Field Archery Association. They finally just replaced that book a couple years ago, so it had been going for over 20 years. So, you know, I have coached 3 Olympic teams, U.S. teams, 96 in Atlanta and in Sydney, and of course 2012 in London, also Pan American Games, Commonwealth Games, World University Games, World Championships, Pan American Championships, Youth World Championships, anyway, all kinds. So it's a really, really long list. So I think what I'm trying to show you is that I came from as being a basic archery instructor at a summer camp with kids and worked my way up. When I was doing those instructor programs for camp counselors, I wrote to the Archery Manufacturer Organization, got grants for quite a few years, and I was flying around the country. I think I did instructor courses for camps almost in every state in the United States. I was all over the place, even Hawaii and Alaska, just doing these instructor courses. So I worked in just all levels all the way up through. I also did a lot of tournament directors and thing that people might not know is that I was the assistant tournament director, but really pretty running the shoot, the Vegas shoot for 5 years, quite a while back. So anyway, I did coach in '96. I coached Justin. It was his mom who asked me to coach at the shop when he was just a pup. And he went on to win an Olympic gold medal in '96 when I was the coach on the line. As long as our men's team also won the gold medal, shooting against Korea in the gold medal match and beating them. And then went on to Sydney where our team got a bronze. And Vic Wonderly, I wasn't his individual coach, but I was a team coach and with him on the line when he won his silver medal. And then, of course, I coached in 2012. I got hired in the beginning of 2010 to coach the British Olympic team for 2012. Unfortunately, we didn't get any medals there, but they did quite well. But the competition is tough out there. Since then, now I'm just working in the coach development and trying to see how we can improve coaches in Britain. And one of the things I did do fairly recently was I went back to school at my age to the University of Birmingham and got a master's degree in sports coaching, which it wasn't what I thought it would be. I thought I'd learn more about coaching, but actually it was more about professional development and how coaches learn, really, how adults learn, how professionals learn. And that's kind of driven a lot of what I'm trying to do with coach development in Britain. So one of the things that I said when I first came here, because in the United States, I was quite involved in, what do you see now on the screen? Do you see the people again? Okay. When I first came here, I thought I would be involved more in coach development because in the United States, the national coach tended to also be the person who's training the coaches. Like Coach Lee in the United States now has his national program of training coaches. And I thought I'd end up doing more of that, but I was told early on that that's not my responsibility at all, and that I need to work with our national team and keep my efforts with them. So I didn't really get to do a lot of coach development. We did a few seminars, but not a lot. But one of the things I did say is that when I leave Britain, I want to see that the British coaches are known as some of the best in the world. And I still want to see that, and I still want to continue to develop coaches. And I do look for ways to do that, and kind of keep trying to discover how we can make better coaches in Britain. And I think that is something that's important. And I think you'll all agree. Now, this next part of the talk is really going to be about. I want to see where I went on my PowerPoint. I don't really have a lot of PowerPoint left. I was just going to just talk, but I will put something up here in a little bit. So what happened in the conversation with the senior coaches is when Neil was speaking, he brought up he made a statement that upset some of the senior coaches, but what it had to do with, he said that one of the things that our national coach, Richard, says is that the kids that are coming into Lillishaw on our national programs have to be retaught how to shoot. In other words, they have to learn all over again. And I can tell you, as being a national coach and being part of the National Talent Development Program, I do see that a lot. We get a lot of kids that just their technique that they have learned or have been allowed to use just isn't technique that's going to get them to a world-class level. So I kind of went over, my experience, because I think the type of coach that I was and the type of coach that I see here in Britain, and we need to have this evolution of coaching and the way that coaches think, is the mistake was that this type of coaching that I call catch and correct. In other words, you find something they're doing wrong and you correct whatever they're doing wrong. But the type of coaching that we really need to do is more of a development coach. Now, this is only for the coaches that want to or working with archers that are interested in performance development. In other words, becoming or working towards an Olympic type pathway. Okay. So there's a big difference between your social recreational archers and archers that are actually on track or want to become best in the world. Okay. And there's some coaches are not interested in that. And this talk really is more for the coaches that are interested in how to develop somebody who wants to be best in the world. Okay. Does that make sense? You guys turn off your mics and speak every so often, just so I don't feel like I'm talking to myself.
Certainly does.
And I know you're still there. So it isn't for everybody, and I understand that. And you know, it's actually for a very, very small portion, probably less than 5% of our membership. Probably not. I think a lot more coaches are interested in that. But I want to talk about a kind of a turning point for me. So I think I was kind of an old style coach up until really up until I came here. It wasn't until I was here that I was able to actually, I think, fully integrate the ideas and the things that I had learned in the previous years. And the places that I learned, I think the first, we went to an international coaching seminar in Korea. And one of the evenings we managed to get Coach Kim cornered in our room. And it was just 3 of us American coaches. And we just started asking him questions about everything, anything and everything about archery. And he's great because he will just talk to you forever about archery. But one of the things I asked him, I said, if you were coaching in America, thinking about American kids and American culture, you know, they got their video games, they got, you know, all this other stuff. We're not going to be able to do them in a Korean-like system where, you know, there's 6 hours a day, 6 days a week on a stretch band for the first 3 months, you know, and nothing else, just shooting bare hands. They don't even get to shoot an arrow for 3 months. So that's probably not going to work in the United States. It's not going to work with those kids. They're going to want to go do something else, do something more fun, right? And the same thing with British kids. I said, so how would you work in a system like that in the United States? And that's where, you know, he started out and he said, well, the first thing I teach you, he said he'd start with 2 drills. And one was, and you'll see them on my drills and skills. These are 2 drills. The first 2 drills I learned that really got me into thinking about drills was the 1, 2, 3 alignment drill, which is just a basic arms up 1, 2, 3 alignment drill, and then the release motion drill. And the release motion drill he taught, you know, he talked about, because he said that's the one drill that all the kids, they have to do perfectly. And he said that the way they would do it is they would, with all the kids doing it, they would call out one kid and say, you're doing it perfect now, so you get to shoot an arrow. And that was like their big reward. He finally gets to shoot an arrow because he's done it correctly. But it was really important to get these drills right. The other place that you know, I learned this from was then when Coach Lee came to the United States and watching what he was doing. And he basically had to start over with all of our archers because we hadn't learned a lot of the basics of shooting. Of course, he has his own technique that, you know, I don't push. I use a lot of what I learned from him and within the technique, but he has a very, very specific technique and a specific style that he wants everybody to learn. And I think I look at it a little bit more simplified than that. But the idea of how these skills are taught, I think, is the important part. And watching him not only teaching us coaches how to learn these skills, but also teaching the archers. And then looking at some other things, like there's a great TED Talks video that we use in our courses, and that you can find online in the on the learning curve. We put the TED Talks video in there. It's only 5 or 6 minutes long, but it talks about how skills are learned, not necessarily sports skills, any skills, how skills are learned. And it talks about, you know, slowing it down, taking it, you know, a piece at a time, really focusing on doing it correctly. And I've added things like, I think feedback is really important. And that's how the drills and skills are created. It's around that thought of developing technique. So what happens is if for me, like even when I was working down in San Diego in the last years, but then also when I first came to Britain, I had this opportunity, had a young lady come in, and it was Becky Martin. And I offered her, I said, if you want to do this, let's do this right, and she was already shooting fairly well. She's a pretty good shooter, but I said, let's start all over. Okay. And it was basically with a stretch band in a mirror, starting with the basics of posture, body position, and alignment, and how to draw the bow correctly, and all those things, and starting all over and getting it right, and then working up from there. And it was very successful. I mean, at 16 years old, she'd shot a 1340 on a women's full FIDA. And did the same thing with Amy Oliver, who, but hers was a little bit different because she was a competing archer. So I did with her, I called it more of a merging technique, where she continued to shoot her bow the way she shot while we were working on the I'm sorry, I got text messages popping up here and there, and I'm getting a little distracted. While we were working on the basics from the beginning, using a stretch band and using a light bow, and then she would try to do as much of that correctly as she could while she was shooting her competition bow. But a big part of the problem was, because it was using new muscles, she just wouldn't be strong enough to be able to shoot her bow with the proper technique that she was being taught with the light bow. So it took a time for that technique to merge into her new technique, and becoming her new technique. And then she went on to shoot, she was top 10 at the World Championships, also had shot 1340 on the women's FIDA, and it had done quite well. But mainly what I learned is, and I think this is so important for coaches, and the thing that I want to stress, and the thing that we're really trying to stress within our coaching programs now, is the importance of developing the right technique early on. And even now, if I get a kid that's been shooting, the problem is if they've been shooting more than 3 to 5 years, very often they've got so many bad habits, it's very, very difficult to change. And this is where we get in trouble at Lillishar at the national level, and coaches complain, because we do end up taking apart archers, and sometimes that's not actually what's best for them, especially because they've been shooting for so long. If they've been shooting more than 3 to 5 years, their habits can be so ingrained, they're very, very difficult to change. If they've been shooting less, and also if they're under 15 years old, then it's a lot easier to make that change. But it would be better if they even learned it early on, like in their first days of shooting, in their beginner's course, and then their development after that, in that first year, 2 years, or 3 years. And that's why it's so important to get the coaches to understand the drills and skills and how the archers can develop. And you do have to get the archers to agree to this. They have to want to do this. We talk about, in our Empowering Archery module, you can talk to them about, this is what it takes and this is how we do it. Do you want to do this? I had to, working with Becky, I can remember the conversation with her and her mom saying, look, this is basically going to mean you're not going to be able to compete the next year. You're almost like starting over like a beginner, and you're not going to be able to be competitive. You're just, we're going to have to kind of write off the next year, but that's how you're going to get to that higher level. And they agreed to do that. They wanted to do that. They trusted me, luckily, because, it is a leap of faith. I've had other kids that said, no, they don't want to do that. And the parents say, no, they don't want to do that. And that's fine. It has to be their choice. They got to buy into it. They got to want to do it. And now she was actually the first one. I would never told her this at the time, that I actually worked that style of system, that Coach Kim, Coach Lee, Korean style of development with. And of course, I saw that it was quite successful. But I think that's the style of coaching that we need to adopt more of. We can't let the archers continue, because I see them in like the National Talent Development Program. We see the same kids coming back every 6 months or year after year, and they're still shooting the same way they were shooting. They're not learning the skills. They're not learning the skills of how to shoot correctly. And and it's not that everybody should look exactly the same. They don't when you look at the top archers in the world. But there are what the Koreans would call, and I asked, I challenged the Koreans on this, but not everybody looks the same. He said, no, but they all learn what they call foundation skills. In other words, these are the skills that every archer should have. And there can be a lot of variety around that, but it's those foundation skills that are so critical. And they really are posture, body position, and alignment. And I'm going to show you, I do have some slides to kind of show you that. Okay, I'm going to take a little break to answer a few questions, but I got so many more points I want to make that I don't want to get too far off. So Gary at Carr, I see you have your hand up. You want to say something?
Yeah, when I was working with River Stoke and Maggie Squires, one of the things we did was we found the same sort of thing. We'd have the squad for the winter. We'd come back in after the summer break, and they would be all over the place again. So what we eventually did was insist that they all go back to a basic level and shoot band and lightweight bow and very small amount, and then change the percentages over the 6 week that we were training during the winter. And that actually worked very well. And what we decided was, or Maggie decided, was that we would not allow anybody to go to the junior nationals until they'd actually all achieved the same level. Now, that was okay with the children, but not so much with the parents. But it did work, and it worked quite well. So it is something I think we should be doing more of.
Yeah, I agree, and I think you guys have seen some decent results out of that as well. And it is difficult. You do have to get the parents and the kids on board. They have to want to do it, and this is a big part of the empowering part. You got to tell them what they're getting into, but most of them want to do it. And I have found the British kids will work hard. And this is another important part of our, the coaching is as a coach, you got to make sure you're not just showing them how to do it, but you're showing them how to learn to do it and understanding what they're trying to do and why they're trying to do it, and also how to get feedback. How do I know if I'm doing it right or I'm not doing it right? And being able to use examples that help pitch it to them, like showing them, what the best in the world look like. You show them that their hand stays on their neck. It doesn't fly out like this, to convince them that this is what they need to do. And this is how they can learn it. This is how they practice. This is how they get feedback. I'm going to read a few of my messages here. I don't know if I really have time to do that. I'll get to those in a little bit, because otherwise I'm going to stall here. Any other questions before I go on? So I was going to, I put in my notes here. I couldn't really organize this talk because I had so many different directions to go. But, thinking about some of the other countries that have come to be, best in the world, and how did they develop, and, what did their development look like? And it's really kind of interesting. One of the things I think to really realize, to recognize, is it takes 7 to 10 years to become an elite archer. Okay. And there's really not shortcuts for this. And, I used to say that it takes at least 5 years before you can shoot a 1300. Because that used to be kind of a benchmark. It's not so much anymore since we're shooting 720s and stuff. But the idea there that it just does take that long. Now there will be some outliers, but on the average, most people it takes that long. I did a little thing on just looking at the World Archery World Rankings a while back, and the top 20 archers, and the average age was and this was very, very common, average age was 11 years old when they started, and their first international tournament that they competed in was around 7 years, and their first medals were around 10 years. I mean, so it actually shows up. Also, all of them, every one of them in the top 20 at that time that I looked, had started shooting before the age of 15. In other words, we just don't see Olympic champions or elite archers starting after the age of 15. But I'm not saying that can't be done. In fact, I would love to see it done. And I've seen some older archers get quite good, and I do believe it can happen. I don't think it's a barrier at all. All I'm saying is that it hasn't happened, or it's very, very rare, but it still could. But if we're looking at, at the really where development comes from, that's what we should be looking at. There are also some outliers. See, Koreans all start basically at the age of 11, and they're not even allowed to shoot 70 meters, so they've been shooting for 5 years. So we know they're not going to have 1300s before they're been shooting for 5 years. But just looking at all the rest, the actual age of starting the range was from about 5 to 15. So yeah, you get some kids that probably start at 5, 6 years old. But the age of specialization where they really start getting serious about their training usually isn't until around 13, 14, or 15, except for Koreans that might be at 11. The other thing is looking at what are the successful countries doing. So if you look at the top 3 countries in the world with both men's and women's teams, which are Korea, obviously, and then China and Chinese Taipei. They're very, very organized systems of, I basically call them institutional archery because they're not social recreational clubs. They just don't have that. In Korea, that it's you can only be a Korean archer and go to the tournaments if you're in the program and you're on the team. If you're not good enough, I asked Coach, I think Coach Kim, I said, well, what happens if you get a kid that just absolutely loves archery and he really, really wants to do archery, but they're just not very good? Do you still let them in? He says, no. So it isn't even that they get to do it by choice. You have to be good or not. That's why you don't see bad Korean archers, because they're just not allowed. I tried to mess up the Koreans by getting social recreational archery going, and actually they are starting to do some, which might help mess them up. But the other thing, when the Koreans decided that they were going to take on archery as an Olympic sport and really work to become dominating, one of the things that the amount of time that it took was, it did actually take 10 years for them to do that. They from the time they really started and got serious about archery, it was 10 years before they had an archer on the podium. And the same with other countries. You look at India when they started, and one of the things when India started their program, and they've had world ranking top archers and have been quite competitive for a while now. In their program, one of the first rules to get into their program was that you'd never shot a bow before. In other words, they didn't want archers that had bad habits. They wanted to start them right and start them right from the beginning. We also know China and Chinese Taipei, they've had Korean coaches, but like say institutional archery where they start young and they learn right. Now, like I say, this isn't necessarily for everybody, because a lot of coaches and a lot of clubs and a lot of archers are going to be your social and recreational archers, and that's fine. We don't want to lose that. That's our sport. That's a big part of our sport, and that's important. But we need to, as coaches, give those archers that want to be or want to set a goal to be best in the world, we need to give them that opportunity to learn what they need to know in order to get there. And that is, give them the opportunity and the choice to participate in what I would like to see, I call performance clubs, or performance groups within clubs, where the kids come for a session of doing drills and skills and learning and really getting, the learning good, proper technique. Okay, so it has to be something they sign up for, that they want to do, and that they can work on. Does that make sense? So it might be something, we do have a performance club specialization, but I would like to see somehow maybe identify what coaches really are interested in performance, and then really giving some more better, higher quality coaching instruction so they can really understand how the drills are used to develop a good foundation skills, so that when the kids come into Little Shell, we feel like they've all had a good foundation of shooting. Okay. I feel like I've talked too much already. Let me check my notes here, see if there's anything. Any questions? I'm going to read through. Does anybody have any questions? Just shot them. I'm going to try to read through because there's a whole bunch of comments in here. I'm afraid I might miss something. Somebody asked about the level 2. We haven't really done that yet, but I'm hoping to do that as soon as we really get this level 1 finalized to get doing some stuff on level 2. But you can get started in level 2. Like if you take the Empowering Archery, that's a full day of the level 2. If you do well, you can't really do the technical framework until we're out, because that's the full day or 2-day part. But hopefully we'll have those coming soon. We're doing really well in the online level 1 courses. We had the one that's starting this week. We limited it to 12 people, and we had 43 people try to get into it. So we have a lot of people signing up for level 1, so it's kind of exciting. What was the question, Mandy? You said about Empowering Archery Part 1, Session 1 and 2, and Part 2, Session 1 and 2?
Hi, Lloyd. Yeah, Ben was just pointing it out to me about the Part 2 of Empowering Archery. Session 1 and 2 is part of a module of the level 2. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I've done that.
Yeah.
I'm just eager because the guy who was doing that, and I completely forgot his name, said speak to Lloyd about level 2 because he'll have the information. So that was why I always put it on there.
Yeah. No, that's good. Yeah, you got that. And somebody posted that YouTube video there, which is good, for the TED's effective practice. It's really good.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay. That's all I had to say. So I think, is that helpful? Do you understand? I think, like I say, it was a big change for me in the way that I coach, because I learned the way I learned, and I learned the way that I was taught in all the coaching courses that I went to, which was really all about try to find out what they're doing wrong, and then very often it wasn't even how to correct it. I think way too often. In fact, one of my complaints about some of the books, like Coach Lee's book and stuff, and I talked to Coach Kim about this, was that they tell you how to shoot. Like he goes into this very detailed explanation about how to shoot, but he never tells you how to learn to do those skills or how to learn to shoot. And I think that's really, really important. And when Coach Kim did his book, he tried to make it more about how to learn those skills than just about this is how you shoot. And I think we miss that a lot. Just like learning the release, the release motion, it's almost magic how well you can get somebody to do a clean release by teaching them just this motion first. And once they've got that and they've learned that motion, it's just like the TED Talks video, you start out with it slow, without a bow, then with a stretch band, then with a bow, and you put it all together and you get somebody with a beautiful world-class looking release. So, but this is what coaches need to do. So what support is then planned for clubs to try and develop these performance techniques? Well, we just actually talked about it last week in one meeting, and then this morning in another meeting. So I'm hoping we can get something soon. Has Easton discontinued the ACC? You know what? I have no idea. I haven't really paid that much attention since I quit working there many years ago. I'll have to look at that and see. I can find out. If you email me, I'll find out, and then you can just call them and ask. Anybody else got anything to say? You understand where I was getting with all of that? I haven't looked at World Archery. I did look at World Archery training courses some while back. I wasn't actually impressed with them. So there were some things I thought were really quite crazy. Some of them are kind of interesting. In fact, it's not a bad idea to introduce some of the ideas into our courses as well. but they are very, very different, which is kind of interesting. Like one of the things they do is when they teach the archer to shoot, they want them to have the nock up here by their eye and then their hand down here by their face. So they have this big gap between the arrow because they figure you should be able to point down the arrow towards the target. So it's kind of different than any place I've ever seen, but it's something that was in the book when I looked at it a while back. The other thing I didn't like is they called the release, this I think was a Pascal term, they called it the critical instant. And to me, that just makes it sound like that would just freak out any archer or create target panic. I wouldn't want to call a release, or the British call it, you call it the loose, right? Which sounds even better. I wouldn't want to call it the critical instant, but yeah, I didn't. Yeah, I didn't think that the World Archery's program was that good. It really isn't designed for countries with that can do their own coaching program. It's really designed for the countries that really can't. What is the best beast? What's that? Helen and Brian, are you talking about the best, Coach Lee's best method?
I think Nikki is taking the Mickey, aren't you, Nikki? Yeah, it's the best technique I was talking about.
No, Ben is taking the Michael out of me, yes.
Oh,
she goes beast mode. Rah!
Yeah, it's Don Radska I'm talking about. No.
What's that?
What, the best? Well, yeah. Biomechanically efficient
shooting technique. Yeah. I came up with it at that time when they were doing that. I came up with my own that I called the worst technique, which was world and Olympic record shooting technique.
It's good. Yeah,
good. Yeah, I had to have something to compete with the best.
Yeah, you can't get much worse than that.
I went with the worst, world and Olympic record shooting technique.
Can you see me shoot then?
What?
I said, you've seen me shoot then, Lloyd.
Well, you know. No, I haven't really. No, but the worst is good. I just had to do something with the best. Coach Lee, I mean, he has a very good technique, and it's I mean, it works fairly well. It hasn't done very well with their women's teams, I don't think. But I just find it to be quite complicated for a system. When I think there's easier, better systems out there. I kind of tend to model more after what the Koreans are doing. Obviously, extremely successful, and I don't think it's that hard to learn, really. Let's see, with the new development coach course, could a level 2 coach do some of the modules of the development course to bring level 2 in line? Yes. Well, bring their level 2 in. Well, it kind of will be anyway, because by the time you do the empowering archery, which you'd have to complete the whole thing to be the new level 2, the technical framework workshop, 2 days, coaching the shooting technique, which is 2 days. But yeah, you can take any of the modules anytime. The whole idea of the modules is to give the opportunity for people to develop their skills. It's just like the creating engaging sessions, I think, is a really, really good one for anybody that's any level that's doing beginners courses, because they can learn more, not just doing it the one way that's been taught in the past, but how to make it better every time you do it, and looking at some of the options you have around doing it rather than being stuck on one way, if that makes sense. So I think just as a 2-session module, it's quite a good one for people to take. And of course, the empowering archery is good for anybody as well. That one's been really popular. We've had a lot of people from a lot of different places take that one as well. The starting your coaching journey, unfortunately, we spend a lot of time on that one talking about the level 1 course, but I actually want to take that out and maybe change the name up a little bit, because there's some really, really good stuff in there about how to become a better coach, how to learn, not only just the reflective practice, but how to get participant feedback and use participant feedback. And also something I really want to encourage more of is coaches talking to coaches and learning from each other through discussion, which I don't think is done very well, especially at the top end. It's often not done very well. So, and then also how to, where you can learn, places you can learn, because there's a lot of stuff out there in a lot of places. So I might even pull out where we just have a little 1 hour session about what do you have to do to complete your level 1, and then have that actually just as how to learn to become a better coach, because I think it's a really good session on its own. Let's see, will it be a requirement for level 2 coaches to do the development modules? No. This one is kind of funny, kind of interesting, because when we did the Empowering Archery workshop, I tell people on my Empowering Archery courses this sometimes. When we did the Empowering Archery workshop for 8 of our coach developers that were going to be delivering the Empowering Archery portion, when they're done, they said, well, this should be a requirement for renewal for all coaches and stuff. And I said, well, that's not empowering, is it? In other words, we want to be empowering just like we want our coaches to be empowering. So for us to come up with requirements isn't really the right way to be empowering. In other words, we want to find ways to motivate you and get you to want to take the course, not require you to take the course. So we are hoping that everybody will take it, but we're not requiring people to take it. And one of the promises we made at the beginning was that we won't take away anybody's current coach certification or level. And because that was a concern of some, if we start a new program, but we don't want to take away anybody's current level, because you guys have a lot invested in that. There was a lot of learning in that. There was a lot of money spent in that. But you're certainly allowed to take any of the modules that you want. If there's some place you want to specialize, you want to learn more about something that, maybe you feel you could use some help in a little more creativity on your beginners courses, or maybe you want to understand what this Empowering Archery is all about. So we're trying to be empowering by empowering you coaches to choose. There's a really interesting session I sat in on just a while back, and it was, I think, from UK Coaching, but it might have been UK Coaching. Anyway, it was about how what they called serial winning coaches. Okay, so these are the best coaches in the world of different sports that have not just won at one Olympic Games, but at multiple Olympic Games or world champions. They've had more than one champion, not just a single one. So really top coaches that have had a very successful career. And one of the things that showed up in there that really stood out for me was these coaches wanted to learn and develop, but they wanted to learn and develop where they felt they needed to. They didn't want to just be told to go to a development course for a subject that they hadn't chosen. They wanted to develop where they wanted to develop, and that's I think is being empowering for our coaches. Giving you guys the choice. So we hopefully in the future we'll have more specialty courses and things like sports psychology, if some of you are really interested in that, or more in equipment and selection, setup and tuning, or maybe in nutrition. I don't think coaches necessarily need to be nutritionists, but if you want to learn more about that, to share with your archers, and you can do as little or as much as you want for the areas that you're most interested in. Maybe courses more around youth development, especially if you're one who wants to work more with a youth program or kids program, which I think we could really do a lot better and build up in Britain. So we might have more specialty in that, but it's empowering by letting you guys choose rather than creating requirements and telling you what you have to do. Gary, you still have your hand up. Did you want to say something else?
Yeah, from a personal point of view, I'm thinking of doing the senior coach course in September. And one of the criteria is I need to do the technical model for workshop. So I need to speak to you about when you might be doing one of those again.
Yeah, we'll do one as soon as we're out of lockdown. We'll start doing them again. So I imagine they'll come up pretty quick. That
Okay.
was actually, when they asked about doing a senior coach thing, and we don't have anything at that level, and there's no problem in doing the senior coach. But I said I wanted those two things included, and instead of making it included, they just said you got to do it outside of their senior coach thing. So I thought that it would come together as part of the course. But there will be opportunities for those because you don't have to complete it before you do the seniors coach course.
No,
You have
I'm
to
supposed to have it. I'm supposed to know dates or something when I actually have my interview.
Oh, we're not gonna have dates yet because we're not out of lockdown yet.
No, that's what Tim did say, but I just thought I'd ask the question in
Yeah.
case you knew something that I didn't.
No, they'll get over it. We'll have them. You'll be able to do it because it's 2 years course, right?
Yeah.
There'll be plenty of opportunities over the 2 years.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Lloyd.
I think it's big. We do want to make sure because if you've done the old program 1 through 3, you wouldn't have. You might have since then, but you wouldn't have done the technical framework, and that's something that that came from the top from David Tillotson, who was pretty insistent that we had this technical framework developed and that everybody follows it. And it doesn't mean a one way to shoot. It just means these are the technical foundations. These are the skills that we see in just about all the top archers in the world, the basics that we want to see.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't show you. I meant to get to the rest of my PowerPoint, which was let me grab it up here real quick. Go back to share screen. Screen 2. That works so well. I keep thinking I'm going to get slicker at this. I've been using Zoom, and so now going back to Teams is kind of messing me up a little bit. Hang on, I got to find my presenter mode here. Here it is. Ding. Okay. So, what some of the basics that we're looking for really is just getting this full draw position, I think is one of the most important parts. And that's looking at the body in the 3 dimensions, which is from the back. Here we see the chest down, the back straight, the posture, the head straight up over the shoulders. I mean, just really basic. There's going to be some variation of that, but not a lot. Okay. It's going to be, that's a basic that we should see. The second part is looking at them from the side, the head straight over the center and the center. She's probably leaning back just a tiny bit more than we want. Not outside of what you might see, but I used to say when I worked in the Olympic Training Center in San Diego that 80% of the archers that came, I had to stand up straight. That was the first thing I had to do was get them to stand up straight because so many of them were leaning back, and that just it creates all kinds of problems. You look at the top archers of the world, you just don't see that lean back. And of course, looking at them from the back, this is the same dimension just from the other side. Seeing that straight body, level shoulders, head straight over. We don't see that in so many of the kids that come in. And these are the basics we really, really want to be able to see when the kids come in. And then the last dimension is one of the best places to see that is overhead and really being able to see that alignment of the shoulders and the boarm in this one straight line coming back. And then this line here, we want to see that really nice triangle. That's, again, we very, very seldom see that. So, I show this picture in our presentations. It's great because you see, this is Bryony Pittman when she came into Academy, and you can see the bum sticking out, the waist angle like this, and the big arch in the back. And then you see her here after we corrected her posture. Look how flat that back is, and look how the bum's tucked under and straight here. And that's the type of difference that coaches need to be able to do. You will not be able to teach this to an archer standing there shooting their competition bow at 70 meters. You've got to take them back and use a stretch band and in the mirror and use the drills. That's the only way they'll learn it. And then they will not, because of the way they're using this arch and raising and the way they're using their shoulders and stuff is so different that they've got to build up a whole set of new muscles, especially if they've been shooting too long, in order to get into this position. Okay, so that's that's part of what we're talking about in making these changes and what coaches really need to do. It's hard work coaching. It's not easy, but one of the examples, I did the Tuesday night class at Lillishall some years ago now. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to do it. Now with the lockdown, we haven't been able to do it. But it was 3 hours every Tuesday night, from 5 to 8, I think. And the kids would come in, and the first thing they do is they get a stretch band. There's a row of mirrors. They get on the mirrors. The coaches would be working with them on this and this and this, and then they would go to a light bow, and then their bow, and blank boss, and up close. A lot of those kids, when you look at our kids now that are on conversion and academy and stuff, a lot of those kids were out of that Tuesday night group or had spent time in that Tuesday night group because they just learned those good skills. So it has to be a choice. They have to want to do it, but the coach needs to be prepared to do the work to help them to get into that right technique. And if you don't know how to do that, I think you learn to do it with practice as a coach. I mean, that's how I learned, is just by listening, learning, and then practicing until I was getting the results. Like I say, I just came from being a little Boy Scout camp counselor teaching archery. Okay, any other questions? We're about out of time here. We got a minute left. Oh, hang on. I see a raised hand here. Lorraine?
Hi. I was just wondering, you mentioned the creating and engaging session.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that one of the modules of either of the development or the session coach, or is this just an extra that you put on the
It's a
learning curve?
module. It's a module of the session coach, but you can take any of the modules by themselves. You don't have to. You don't have to sign up for the whole session coach course. They're £25 for 2 evenings of 2 hours. It is part of the session coach course, but you don't have to. You can take it without anybody can take it.
This is a new module then that I wouldn't have done on the level 1 course.
Not on the old level 1.
Yeah.
I mean, you're probably a lot or some of the same information, but I think we present it a little bit differently.
Okay, thank you.
What did somebody wrote here?
Oh, I put it in the question in the chat as well, because you were talking and I was listening, so I put it in there. Okay.
Somebody wrote something about learning curve. Sorry, learning curve, not future learn, but still can get it funded.
That's me, Lloyd. Lydia was asking me about mental health courses that I'm doing.
Oh, okay.
And also nutrition, so you can get it through them.
Okay. We actually had some good nutrition stuff done with the academy coaches, which I'm hoping we can share. And they're doing some things on learning curves where they're sending in their breakfasts and stuff and showing off, which is really cool for the kids to be able to do that.
Lloyd, Gary's got his hand up again.
He's never had his head down. Gary, what's up? Did you have?
No, I must have had it up from previous. Sorry,
Yeah,
I haven't got anything else to say on. Actually, no, sorry. There is one thing. I don't know if you agree with me or not on this, but my feeling is that we don't spend enough time on the philosophy side of the sport, the psychology, everything revolving around that. If we look at how the Far East deal with it, it's far more important to them than it is to us. And if we take it considerably, that 15-20% of the sport is everything else, but the psychology is 80% of the sport, and yet we don't spend enough time on it.
That's true, and whenever we do surveys of athletes of what they want, they always get into the psychology part. That's what they want more of, is more of the psychology. So yeah, we could do a lot better with that. I have talked to the sports psychologist. He's actually got a pretty good team and has a pretty good system for sports psychology that works with our the Paralympic team. So I'm hoping to eventually put together some sessions there to see what we can do, because you got to be careful how we do this sports psychology. I've seen a whole lot of sports psychology that I didn't think was very helpful for the athletes. More the problem identification and dealing with problems versus I like a sports psychology that's more of a go get to it type of a positive how to achieve greatness rather than how to deal with your problems. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't think we do enough of things like confidence building and motivation and goal setting. I mean, it just doesn't really happen. I mean, we do it in everyday life, basically. So it's something that I think we should do a lot more of.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think we will have more of that in the future. It's really hard trying to get all this together.
Yeah, no, I understand. I'm well aware that you've got a lot of work to do that. But, if you've got something already in place with the paras, then maybe it can be sort of filtered down to different levels of coaches, so that if they want to learn about it and how to make it effective, then if you're archery, then it could possibly be available.
Yeah, there's also a lot of good resources out there in other places on psychology, on sports psychology as well. So there are other places to look to get information. But maybe we could do a better job about putting some of those together for you. I know that in the United States they pretty well use it's not a sports psychologist, but Lanny Basham's mental management. So to get to their level 3 or level 4, you have to take his online course,
right?
Which I think is an automated one, not a live type course.
Yeah, I mean, I've got all that. I've got all his stuff anyway, so I'll read that quite a lot or listen to it quite a lot.
I like Tony Robbins. He's one of my favorites.
Is he? Okay.
I wrote that.
He's really good, Lloyd. Seriously, that man is a genius.
Yeah.
We use his human needs psychology training all the way through, from our beginners course all the way through.
Yeah. No, he's got some great stuff. Really,
yeah.
I always enjoy listening to him.
Ben, who was that?
Tony Robbins.
Tony Robbins. He's really big in the United States as a motivational.
Oh, is he one of these sort of speakers that deals with selling and stuff like that as well?
Yes, a little bit.
Anything and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I know what you mean now. Okay. I'll have another look at that.
He's done a lot of NBA basketball players on sports psychology as well. But psychology is psychology. It's work. It doesn't matter what area it is in. It's all about getting those results.
Yeah.
And you're right about the confidence. The Koreans did a study. It was a published paper, and it had to do with, it talked to all the top archers, top coaches, top, everybody within the sport of archery to determine what are the most important factors for an archer. And the thing that came out number 1 was confidence. So I asked the archers one time, I said, I want you to go just Google confidence and ask questions like, where can I buy confidence? How can I get confidence? Can I get confidence in the food I eat or whatever? Just ask whatever dumb questions you can get and just start. There's tons of stuff on it. Some of it's probably not very good. You got to consider the source and stuff, but at least it gets you started thinking about, one of the things that it says over and over again is confidence can be learned. So it isn't just something you have or you don't. It's something that you can learn. And I think that's important. So start thinking about how you can learn confidence if it's that important. Especially if somebody lacks confidence. That's one of the things I challenge people to do, the kids especially. They kind of like the idea. I said you can, learn what a greater challenge than learning to control your own mind. I mean, it's your mind, it's in your head.
Yeah.
So, have fun with it.
One of the greatest things that was ever devised was Amco's sailing technique, Lloyd, where you would walk into a hotel somewhere, and all of a sudden, behind these closed doors, you would hear, I can, I will, I will, I will, I can, and I will do it. And you look through there, there's about 50 people stood on chairs with their hands above their head, screaming at the top of their voice, I can, and I will do it. It worked. It's motivation and confidence building.
Yeah. Very much. Okay, we're about out of time. Anybody else have any questions? I don't mind chatting with y'all anyway. Was it tonight okay? Did it help you? I don't have any way to get feedback on this, so we'll just have to.
Well, we'd have to do a survey at the end if we're happy with it.
I know.
Or not.
Yeah. Anyway. Okay.
Right, yes, brilliant. I've been messaging the rest of my coaches already with some of your little tips.
Uh-oh. Well, let's, think about this, like I say, with this performance thing. And if we can get coaches that are interested in doing performance sessions for their clubs, I'd like to see some youth ones, some kids ones, but I think there could be adult ones too. Maybe they should be separate, but kind of modeled after what we're doing on our Tuesday night. I think that was quite successful. And to help coaches learn and understand what it takes, and the archers as well. And the archers decide that they want to really, really learn. And even if it does mean standing in front of a mirror with a stretch band. Of course, we had a big stereo. We'd crank up the tunes, play music. They can talk to each other. So we made it fun for them. It wasn't horrible. In fact, I did ask the kids sometimes. In fact, they all wanted, when we couldn't do them anymore, they were all quite upset. And they were always asking, when can we start the Tuesday night groups again? And then we'd always finish the night with bow training. That was something that Sangi came up with, but it was really torture. They hated it. So I'd call it fun with bow training. And we'd put on some real peppy music and everything as they suffer their way through it. But it was fun. You can make it a good environment that they will enjoy and be work. They don't mind the work. Okay.
Yep.
What do you guys want to talk about next month? Anything? You want me to prepare anything or just have a regular chat? Or should I come up with something on my own?
Release. Yeah, release. To expand on the release motion.
Okay, I can talk about that. I mean, I'll go over my thing that I do. Well, I do it in the level 1. If you guys have heard it, or the technical framework workshops, but we can get anybody to have almost a world-class release just doing 3 or 4 little drills that just absolutely works great.
Yeah, okay.
Lloyd, what about working around injuries?
I always just send them to the professionals.
Fantastic.
We got plenty of people that know about that. And that's one thing that was nice about working at the at Lillishaw's is that we had the physio right there, and anytime there was an issue, I just send them to the physio. I'll tell you though, if an archer, the first thing if they say they have pain somewhere, and I want them to tell me, definitely if they have pain. 80% of the time, I can get the pain to go away by just getting them to relax more in whatever they're doing. Because a lot of times it's just excess tension that's causing the pain. And when you look at an archer, everybody says, what do you say about top archers in the world? They make it look so easy, right? And it's because it should be relaxed motion. I tell them, you got to learn to dance with your bow. Quit fighting with your bow. You want to dance with your bow. And if you get this, this relaxed motion going, you're a lot less likely to get things in the wrong place and get injured. Are you a physio there?
No, I've just ripped my deltoid muscle, Lloyd. I've had to go back to this horrible thing they called a recurve bow.
Yeah, well, when you get old, You're gonna get hurt.
Hey, watch it now. Watch it. Behave.
Actually, he's younger than me. No.
I've had 54 years of shooting a bow, and I'm only just really starting to suffer for it now.
Behave now, because of a dragon might get blowing fire and soot.
We are trying to do more, and I think we definitely need to include this when we get into the development coach thing, but more what they call the prehab instead of the rehab, but things you do that are preventative that will help avoid injury. But a lot of it is just good shooting technique and keeping it simple and efficient and like say relaxed and not
And in Ben's case, not lifting concrete garages.
Yeah. Is that how you hurt yourself? Wasn't even an archery injury?
No, it wasn't even.
Well, no, it was archery because we've got to get some new storage at the club. So I managed to get hold of a prefab garage. So in my infinite wisdom, I'm 20 still, and I dismantled it and lifted it. Now I'm not. I'm 45 and it doesn't move anymore.
That's great. Okay, well, if anybody, I'll stay on for a little bit if anybody wants to just chat a little bit. You can go. I mean, we're way past our time. So if anybody wants
our bedtime.
If anybody wants to bail, they can bail.
Oh.
And thank you for stopping by, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah. Thanks, Lloyd. Good night.
If anybody wants to say anything else?
Just a nice t-shirt, Mandy.
Cool, isn't it?
What is
it?
All the way. All the way.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Mine's newer than yours, though.
Oh, sorry, I'll have to get a new one.
Lloyd?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm supposed to be on the coaches development team, and I don't know if I've been forgotten or things haven't happened, but I haven't heard anything for ages.
Oh, for coach developers?
Yeah.
Oh, I've been doing them individually. Send me an email. We'll just get the time. I'm pretty well free all day, every day. I have nothing else to do. So if you, just let me know when we can talk and we'll talk. Okay. I'll talk you through it all.
All right. Yeah, because I know that you were sent a reminder by Hannah, I think, to say that I was on that development route, but as I said, I've heard nothing for ages. So
yeah, well, we haven't done anything out to the groups in ages, but send me something and we'll talk it over, because you can do. Do you have people lined up to do a level 1?
No. All right. Since the lockdown, no, just prior to the lockdown, I did have something that was cancelled, but I haven't really put much investment into starting a new course because of the uncertainty. I just didn't know where things are going.
Yeah. Okay. Well, send me an email. We'll just we'll plan a time when you can talk, and we'll get together, and I'll talk you through everything.
All right. Thank you. Take care.
Okay. See ya.
Bye. Bye.
Bye. What are you doing, Damien?
He's probably dyeing his hair again.
Right, we're gonna go find some more cake, Lloyd.
All right. Y'all getting haircuts? I don't understand how y'all are getting haircuts.
So it's simple. You go to the shop, you get a zipper, and you just do it. Number one over the top.
Short. Oh, my hair's getting so long.
Become a poodle.
Graham's growing a dog.
Become a poodle. He gets a haircut. I can't. I've got a longer tail than
him. Oh, that's true. They are doing it.
Graham, you try booking into the groomers yourself.
Shut up. Right, next time I see you, you'll become a pigeon, not an eagle.
Oh, you love us really, Graham.
I know.
I'm still recording. I should have turned off the recording.